If you believe that a real man owns his mistakes, hit that like button right now and subscribe, because what you are about to watch unfold on the stage of Family Feud is the kind of moment that most marriages never get. There is a moment in every marriage when the truth has to come out, when the silence becomes heavier than the words that caused it. When a woman who has held everything together, the house, the children, the smile on her face for the sake of appearances, finally runs out of reasons to stay quiet. That moment happened on a Tuesday afternoon, under studio lights, in front of 200 strangers and a television host who was not prepared for what he was about to hear. Steve Harvey has made a career out of making people laugh. But what one woman said at that podium did not make anyone laugh. It made an entire studio go still. And it made her husband, a man who had walked onto that stage with the confidence of someone who believed his secrets were safe, look like he wanted the floor to open up beneath him. What Steve Harvey did next will stay with everyone who saw it for the rest of their lives. Her name was Gloria Reeves. She was 49 years old, a registered nurse from Memphis, Tennessee, who had spent the last 22 years of her life giving care, professionally at a hospital and personally at home. She had the kind of presence that fills a room without demanding attention. Steady, warm, watchful. The kind of woman who notices when the people around her are struggling before they say a word. She had married Terrence Reeves when she was 27, at a small church in the neighborhood where she had grown up. Terrence was charming, ambitious, and funny in the way that makes a room gravitate toward you. He had built a modest but successful landscaping business over the years, and he took genuine pride in the life he had constructed. The house, the trucks with the company logo on the side, the reputation in the community as a man who kept his word. They had 2 sons, both in their late teens by the time they appeared on Family Feud. The family had been nominated by one of Terrence's employees, who wrote in their application, "The Reeves family is the most hardworking, loyal group of people I've ever worked for. They deserve something good." What the employee did not know, what almost nobody outside the Reeves household knew, was that 18 months before the taping, Gloria had discovered that Terrence had been unfaithful. Not a brief lapse in judgment, not a single moment of weakness, but a sustained betrayal that had lasted nearly 2 years. She had found out the way many women do, not through confrontation, not through a confession, but through a detail that did not match. A receipt. A name she did not recognize saved in a phone. The quiet arithmetic of small lies finally adding up to something undeniable. Terrence had not denied it when she confronted him. He had cried. He had apologized. He had promised it was over. And Gloria, who had built her entire adult life alongside this man, who shared a mortgage and 2 children and 22 years of mornings with him, had made the most difficult decision of her life. She had chosen to stay and try. She had not told her sons. She had not told her mother. She had not told her closest friends. She had absorbed the full weight of that knowledge alone, carried it through every shift at the hospital, every school pickup, every dinner at the family table, and every Sunday morning in that same church where they had gotten married. 18 months of trying to rebuild something from the inside, without the tools, without support, and without ever once allowing herself to fall apart where anyone could see. She came onto the Family Feud stage wearing a burgundy dress and a smile that, if you did not know what was underneath it, looked completely real. The Reeves family played their main game with the energy of a team that had been competing with each other their whole lives. Which of course they had. Their 2 teenage sons were quick and loud. Terrence was confident at the podium, his hands relaxed on the edge, his answers delivered with the easy certainty of a man comfortable in front of a crowd. Gloria played beside him, laughing at the right moments, clapping for her sons, performing the role of happy wife with a precision that only comes from 18 months of practice. They were good. They won the main game and advanced to fast money. The audience loved them. Steve Harvey loved them, the way he loves every family that comes ready to play and brings the room along with them. It was during the break before Fast Money that things shifted. Steve had wandered over to the family, the way he does, making small talk while the crew reset. He asked Terrence how he had landed a woman like Gloria. Terrence laughed and said something charming about being in the right place at the right time. Steve turned to Gloria. What about you? What made you say yes to this man? The question was meant to get a funny answer, a playful jab, the kind of exchange that warms up the room before the final round. Gloria looked at Terrence, then she looked at Steve, and something behind her eyes made the decision that the rest of her had been holding back for a very long time. Can I be honest? She said. Steve Harvey, to his credit, did not deflect. That's all I ever ask, he said. I almost didn't come today, Gloria said quietly. She was no longer performing. Her voice had changed, not louder, not more emotional, just more real. We've been going through some things. Serious things. And part of me thought that standing up here next to him and pretending everything was fine was just one more thing I didn't have the strength for. The crew had gone still. The audience had quieted. Terrence was looking at the floor. Steve did not rush her. He simply waited. He betrayed me, Gloria said. About 2 years ago. I found out 18 months ago. I've been trying to get past it ever since. Alone. Because I didn't want to hurt the kids. Because I didn't want people to look at us differently. Because I kept thinking that if I just worked hard enough at it, eventually it would stop hurting. Her voice did not break. She did not cry. She said it the way a person says a thing they have rehearsed inside their own head so many times that saying it out loud no longer requires tears. Just courage. And I'm tired, she said simply. I am so tired of carrying this by myself. Terrence had not looked up. Steve Harvey stood very still. The audience was completely silent. And then one of their teenage sons, the older one, 17 years old, said from the side of the stage, in a voice that was trying very hard not to crack, "Mom, I didn't know." Gloria turned to her son, and for the first time in the entire exchange, her composure slipped, just slightly, around the edges. "I know, baby," she said. "I didn't want you to." The younger son had both hands over his face. Terrence finally looked up. His expression was not the expression of a man caught. It was something more complicated than that. It was the expression of a man who had allowed someone else to carry the damage he had caused, and who was only now, in front of all of these people, fully comprehending the weight of what she had been holding. She never told anyone, Terrence said, almost to himself. Not one person. Steve Harvey looked at him steadily. "I know," Terrence said. "I know what I did." "Do you?" Steve asked. There was no performance in it. It was a real question. Terrence did not answer immediately. He looked at his sons. He looked at Gloria. He looked at the audience, and then at the floor again, and the silence stretched out long enough that everyone in that room understood died. This was not a game show moment anymore. This was a marriage, playing out in real time, in a place where no one could pretend not to see it. The Steve Harvey has never been a man who shies away from hard conversations. He has spoken publicly about his own failures, his own broken relationships, his own seasons of having been the person in the wrong. That history lives in him, and it was visible on his face in that moment, not as performance, but as recognition. He turned to Terrence Reeves and he said something that cut straight through everything. "This woman stood next to you today. She came on this show with you. She smiled and played this game and cheered for your family. And the whole time, she was carrying something you put down and walked away from." He paused. "What do you want to say to her?" Terrence opened his mouth, closed it, the kind of silence that happens when a man is deciding, in real time, whether to reach for the easy answer or the true one. He chose the true one. He turned to Gloria. He took a breath that seemed to come from somewhere deep. "I don't have an explanation that's going to be good enough," he said. "I know that. I've known it for 18 months. I kept telling myself that because you stayed, because you were still there, that maybe you had found a way to be okay with it. But watching you stand here and say that out loud, say that you've been doing it alone." He stopped. His jaw tightened. "That's on me. That's entirely on me." He stepped toward her. His sons were watching. "You should not have had to carry that alone," he said. "That was not fair to you. None of it was fair to you. And I am sorry, not because we're on television, not because our kids are watching, but because you are the best person I have ever known and you deserved better than what I gave you." He did not reach for her hand. He did not presume forgiveness. He stood there and let the apology be what it was: incomplete, insufficient, and real. Steve Harvey watched it happen. Then he spoke. "Gloria," he said gently, "I'm not going to ask you if you forgive him, because that's not something that happens in a moment. That's a decision that takes time, and it's yours to make." He paused. "But I want to ask you something else. In 22 years, before all of this, what was the thing that made you sure he was the right person?" Gloria was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "He used to drive me to night shifts at 2 in the morning, so I wouldn't have to take the bus. For 3 years, before we could afford a second car, he got up at 2 in the morning and drove me to work and came back for me at the end of my shift." She looked at Terrence. "He never once complained about it. He never made me feel like it was a burden. He just did it because he thought it was the right thing to do." She paused. "I married the man who drove me to work at 2 in the morning. I want to know if he's still in there." Steve Harvey looked at Terrence. Terrence said, "He is. I promise you he is." The audience did not erupt the way studio audiences sometimes do. They responded with something quieter and more powerful, a sustained, collective exhale, and then a long, building wave of applause that did not feel like entertainment but like witness. Like 200 people saying, "We saw this. We were here. This was real." Steve turned to face the cameras. "I want to say something to every man watching this," he said. "When you make a mistake in your marriage, the damage doesn't stay in that moment, it travels. It lives in your partner's body, in the way she holds herself at dinner, in the way she answers questions at a game show, in the weight she carries that you can't see because you weren't there to watch her pick it up." His voice was steady and without embellishment. "The apology is not the finish line. The work that comes after is, and you'd better be willing to do it." He looked at Terrence one last time. "She gave you another chance 18 months ago. You've got one more chance right here, right now. Don't waste it." The Reeves family played fast money. Gloria went first, calm and precise, and scored 161 points. Terrence followed, and whether it was the weight of the moment or something unlocking in him that afternoon, he scored with an accuracy that surprised even the production team. Their combined total crossed the threshold, and the family won the $20,000. Neither Gloria nor Terrence reacted to the money the way winners usually do. They stood together, and Terrence put his hand on the small of her back, carefully, as if asking permission with the gesture rather than assuming it. And she did not move away. Their younger son walked onto the stage and hugged his mother for a very long time. When the episode aired several weeks later, the segment moved through the internet with unusual force. It was not the win that spread. It was the conversation in the break, the confession, the moment Steve asked Terrence what he wanted to say. The clip was shared in women's groups, in church communities, in marriage counseling forums. Therapists cited it. Ministers played it during pre-marriage sessions. A columnist wrote about it in a national newspaper under the headline, "What Accountability Actually Looks Like." The response that resonated most widely came from Gloria herself. In a brief statement her daughter-in-law helped her post to social media several days after the episode aired. "I didn't go on that show intending to say any of that. I went because my family wanted to do something together. But something in me was done being quiet. I want every woman who has been carrying someone else's mistake in silence to know, you are allowed to put it down. You are allowed to say it out loud. And saying it does not mean you've given up. It means you've finally given yourself the same care you've been giving everyone else." The post was shared over 400,000 times within the first week. Steve Harvey addressed the episode on his radio show, characteristically direct. "People keep asking me what I was thinking during that moment with the Reeves family," he said. "Here's what I was thinking. I was thinking, this woman is telling the truth in front of everybody because she has been telling it in private and nobody was listening. And the least I could do, the very least, was make sure somebody was listening this time." Through a connection facilitated by the show's producers, the Reeves family was connected with a licensed marriage and family therapist who specializes in couples rebuilding trust after infidelity. They began attending sessions together, and several months later, Gloria confirmed publicly that they were still working on it. Not fixed, not finished, but working. "Working is enough," she said in one interview. Working means we both decided to stay in the room. Terrence, for his part, began speaking at a men's accountability group at their church, something he had joined 6 months after the episode, quietly and without announcement. He has spoken there a number of times since about the specific damage of allowing a partner to carry shared pain alone. He does not describe himself as someone who has arrived anywhere. He describes himself as someone trying to become the man who drives his wife to work at 2 in the morning again, literally and otherwise. Their sons process the revelation in the ways that teenage boys usually do, imperfectly, with a lot of silence and then a lot of questions. The older son, now in his first year of college, told a journalist who interviewed the family, "I was angry at my dad for a long time after that. But I watched him do the work. I watched him show up. And I think that's actually the most important thing I've ever seen him do. Not something he achieved, but something he chose every day when it was hard." Steve Harvey, in a longer reflection published as part of a profile on his television legacy, was asked about the moments that had stayed with him over the years of hosting Family Feud. He mentioned the Reeves family specifically. "Gloria Reeves taught me something that day," he said. "She taught me that courage is not always loud. Sometimes courage is a woman in a burgundy dress who walks onto a television stage and decides in that moment that she is no longer willing to be the only person in her marriage doing the honest work. That's not a breakdown. That's a turning point." And Terrence, I'll give him this, when the moment came, he didn't run from it. He stood in it. That matters. He paused. Marriage is not a destination, it's a decision you make over and over again, especially on the days when the other person has every reason not to choose you back. For Gloria Reeves, the most meaningful measure of what happened that afternoon is not the views or the shares or the counselors who reference her story. It is something smaller and more private. It is the fact that 6 months after the episode, on a Tuesday morning before an early shift, Terrence got up without being asked and drove her to work. She did not comment on it when she got out of the car. She did not need to. He already knew what it meant. If this story moved you, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Every week we share stories about the human moments that television catches when it's at its best. Stories about real courage, real families, and the choices that define us. Share this with someone who needs to hear that honesty, even when it's painful, is always the beginning of something better.